welcome everybody. I think we represent a good cross-section from around the country. We know what's happening with foreclosures and evictions, with affordable housing, with homelessness, with the economic crisis of joblessness, how this is impacting the issues of housing. We know that the foreclosure crisis has not abated. In fact, it's going to accelerate, as we can even imagine that. Here in Detroit, we have been struggling for a moratorium on foreclosures, evictions, and utility shutoffs for the past over 3 years now. We have been demanding from the governor that she declare a state of economic emergency throughout Michigan, where unemployment has been the highest in the country until just last week when Nevada surpassed the unemployment rate in Michigan. Despite our continuing struggles and building from a grassroots level, the politicians pretty much have shown no political courage whatsoever in siding with the people to do something that costs nothing, okay? A moratorium halting foreclosures and evictions doesn't cost a dime. When all we hear about these days are the budget cuts and how there's no money for anything, we've been raising a solution that doesn't cost anything, and that in fact was the law of the land in the 1930s, when a moratorium on foreclosures was declared in 26 states and upheld as legal by the United States Supreme Court, that said in a time of economic emergency, the rights of the people take precedent over the rights of the corporations and banks to enforce their contracts.
That's right. And
we certainly see, certainly here in Michigan and in Detroit, where the official unemployment rate is near 40%, the people need this relief, and we need it. It's past due. We needed it yesterday. We needed it 3 years ago. But we continue to wage a political struggle. People know in their bones that the banks have been getting bailed out really by the trillions of dollars. The federal government is, we're finding now in the city of Detroit, is the main forecloser and evictor through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and HUD. And these federal entities that have received the people's bailout money and that have federal programs that are supposed to give relief to homeowners to stop foreclosures, in fact, what they're doing is further enriching the banks and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and driving people out of their homes. So we have, the coalition here in Detroit has a lot of history in the struggle for a moratorium, as well as in the streets, demonstrating on behalf of people's rights, both outside banks, at people's homes, in the neighborhoods. We've done putbacks where the bailiff comes and throws everyone's possession out of a home into a dumpster like it's so much trash that people have accumulated over their lifetime. And we've gone and liberated those dumpsters and moved people back into their homes. So I think, we have a lot of information to share about broadening the struggle, and we want to hear from all of you who have a lot of information on the struggle. And we want to see what we can do, how we can network together in order to help strengthen this movement. Because, as I said, the foreclosure crisis this year alone, millions more are going to be thrown out of their homes. So the struggle continues. Right now, I'd like to turn things over to Abuyumi Ezekwe, and he will give an update on various aspects of the Moratorium NOW coalition.
Thank you very much. I just want to start out just giving a brief history, very brief, of how the Moratorium NOW coalition started. It came out of a group that we had here in Detroit that started in 2002. It was the Michigan Emergency Committee Against War and Injustice, which was basically an anti-war and social justice organization. And we started right before the U.S. Military intervention in Iraq. In 2002, the invasion was March 2003. And of course, we realized that after the invasion and occupation of Iraq, that it was symptomatic of a much deeper problem in regard to U.S. foreign policy, and that the foreign policy of the United States was a reflection of the domestic policy of this country. The wars where billions, hundreds of billions of our tax dollars are taken from us without our consent every year and turned over to the Pentagon was actually depriving the ability of local governments, county governments, state governments, and even the federal government to address the concrete needs of people in communities, particularly communities like the city of Detroit. Even in Macau, we had a slogan that said, money for our cities, not for war. Money for jobs, not for war. Money for education, not for war. Money for health care, not for war. Money for housing, not for war. Consequently, in 2007, when we saw the precipitous decline in the housing market, the decline in people's values of their properties, and then the escalation of home foreclosures, we knew then that this was going to be a major turning point in U.S. economic history. When we were in Macau in 2007, we put out a leaflet that came out of some research that we had done on how the housing crisis was dealt with during the Great Depression in the 1930s. We discovered during that time period that dozens of states throughout the U.S. imposed a moratorium on foreclosures. It was challenged by the banks, by the real estate companies. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And it was upheld that governors in various states had a right to impose a moratorium on foreclosures, that the right of people's ability to remain in their homes superseded the contract clauses related to these mortgages. And then it was an economic state of emergency that was in existence, particularly here in the state of Michigan. We had the highest unemployment rate in the country at that time. Now we're only number 2. The city of Detroit had an astronomical rate of foreclosures. So we formed in 2008, when we got the assistance of State Senator Hanson Clark, who met with us because many people were coming to him, his own constituents, talking about how they were losing their homes, that they had fallen prey to these predatory lenders. Unemployment was rising at an astronomical rate, and we met with him, and we actually sat down and drafted a bill, SB 1306, which was introduced by Hanson Clark in 2008. And this bill, although initially we were calling for a moratorium of 5 years, Clark introduced a bill that called for a moratorium for 2 years. Immediately, this bill was attacked by the Mortgage Bankers Association, by the financial interests in the state of Michigan, by even people within the Democratic Party and the Republican Party attacked it. They said it was something that the banks wouldn't support, that they would fight against, and they actually mounted a whole campaign to prevent this bill from even getting out of committee. But we didn't stop there. We didn't let that discourage us, because we're a mass organization, and we go out among the people, and we do political education, we do mobilization, and we do organization. And when people were coming to Jerome Goldberg's office and Vanessa Fluker's office, they had to respond through the legal system. But we realized that this struggle really wasn't going to be won in the courts, and it wasn't going to be won in the state legislative chambers or in the U.S. Congress. That we had to mobilize people in the streets to actually defend people's homes, and also to do political education about what was actually going on. So we started to take on cases of individual households where we mounted campaigns. We went through people's communities. We mobilized the neighborhoods. And after doing that, we got into a situation where we were able to win some cases. Ruby Curl Pinkins, is a senior citizen here in the city of Detroit. They were on the verge of taking her home. Countrywide, which was purchased by Bank of America, was right on the verge of taking her home. And we were successfully able to mount a campaign to back up Bank of America. And today, she still remains in her home. There are many other cases that we fought, and we won during 2008 and 2009, despite the fact that we could not get a moratorium bill passed in Lansing in the state legislature.